There are much discussions about what self-realization means, pre and post self-realization, as for embodiment of that realization in relation with the reality of it all taking place even now. For obviously, if we're not sensitive to what it is that is taking place here and now as it is, then it all just becomes mental. And the purpose here is to experience what it is we are talking about in terms of realizing one's true nature. So all the while, we try to simply sit in our being as it is, within that pure, mere sense of I amness that we are about, essentially, prior to whatever is going on the level of our minds, on the level of how we take ourselves to be attached to this mind-body functioning. So it is more important to tap into that first and foremost before we can conclude on any theories about what self-realization is about or where it leads to and so on. For your connection with whatever is true in the moment is that which determines the truth of your realization or of your understanding of who you are. So as much as you stay put in that, as much as you are actually embodying the realization of who you are. So in terms of embodiment of that self-realization, it's merely a question of how steady you are and abiding as you are. For then the mind becomes silent. Then the mind adjusts itself to this being and comes to function accordingly, as opposed to trying to understand anything with the mind, as opposed to understanding what we call ourselves on the level of the mind in order to go beyond ourselves, in order to understand our true nature. So here in satsang, the invitation is to see whether one can abide as oneself, independently from mind, and to know that that's the main thing that should occupy the mind before anything else. And yes, what prevents one from abiding as the truth that one is all that is attached to mind in terms of false sense of identity and propensities, in terms of patterns of mind, tendencies, fear, attachments, desire, insecurity, anxieties, tribulations with whatever is going on in one's life on a daily basis. So embodiment of one's true nature is being able to navigate through it all while remaining in touch with it, in touch with one's true nature, never leaving sight of it, never taking oneself for this mind-body functioning as this ego self, which itself encounters difficulties in life, resisting to anything, even to look at itself, even to know what it is made out of. When the true nature of one's being itself not even concerned about whatever is going on with the unconscious side of the mind, as opposed to the conscious side of the mind, which we come to associate a sense of self to it. And as we come to act out of that place of separate self, as an ego self. Then when we become interested in knowing ourselves, we still remain attached to that separate sense of self and think that whatever realization we will find will make that sense of separate self a more happy separate self and more fulfilled separate self. And of course, it's not happening. Of course, we're not finding it on that level, for one's true nature has nothing to do with it. One's true nature is actually inviting us on a daily basis to return inside, to stay put in our own sense of being as we are, here and now. So in that regard, everything of existence is a mirror to where you are in relation to your own self. Everything happening on the daily basis is a mirror to where you're at with yourself. As much as you allowing yourself to remain yourself through daily existence, through all these unpredictable events, as much as you find that a sense of balance and peace with it all. And that is the purpose of existing, so that we may have a way to look at ourselves. So when you look for yourself, when you look for your true nature, everything of existence is a pointer to where you're at in relation to your own inner true being. So it's not like one's true nature has to be found in a place outside of our daily existence, as if we had to devote our entire life to some meditation practices, or had to go live in mountains or in a cave, in a monastery, and so on. Life is designed in exactly the way it should be, in terms of having to face the unpredictable events of life, so that we can look at ourselves. So your ways of thinking, of reacting or feeling towards daily living is what one has to watch. You watch that, you return home. You watch that, you have a sense of where you're at in relation to yourself. For the world that you perceive, the world that you live in, is the inner world that you create for yourself in relation to how you are with your thoughts, your emotions, your sensations, and so on. Your life as it is the path to knowing yourself. So it's all our resistance, all our we are with giving so much importance into our thinking and emotions that create a distancing from our true nature or not. Our life is the path leading to our own truth. It's not a hard thing to realize, to know that when you relax in your being, no matter the circumstances, no matter the externalities, when you give yourself the chance to sit in your being, you directly experience the truth of the matter. You come to know that you are the one responsible for yourself. you are the one allowing your true nature to stand out or to be pushed in the background. If only certain circumstances would be more favorable for that. And all the while being nothing other but yourself, as the truth of yourself. The sun stays behind the clouds, no matter the clouds. The clouds being your own mind. The clouds being created out of your investment into your thoughts, taking your thoughts for reality, taking your thoughts of yourself as being yourself. That is all. That is all that makes a difference between being yourself and being something you are not, hence creating difficulties for yourself, hence going through a life of difficulties and misery. So in satsang, the invitation is to know yourself as that, to recognize that you already know that, and to let go of everything you are not, along with all its miseries. Here and now. So in your own life, there is no moment where there is not this invitation to be yourself, to rest as yourself. Even with everything you're struggling with, when you walk around and you're feeling sensitive to whatever is going on, even if there is some negativity around you, how are you responding to it in terms of whether you stand as the truth of yourself or whether you're giving or investing into your mind, investing into your resistance, your ideas of how things should or shouldn't be. So there is no moments in your daily living where there's not an invitation to acknowledge who you are as you are, and to let go of everything you are not. Therefore, your life must be the path. Therefore, your life is perfect as it is. Therefore, your life is lived by a most intelligent principle. Therefore, you must be that. Therefore, the consciousness living through you is itself all that we are looking for. Itself creating it all in order to gaze at itself, to know itself through the infinity of potentialities taking place in itself, as itself.
So how to continue to remain the who I am as a totally free being in the face of pain? And where does pain come from?
But the pain that becomes a problem when you resist it. Yourself as you are is not affected by it. So when there is a resistance, is as real as long as you resist it. You come to evaluate your level of embodiment of your truth, not when challenges no longer come your way. It's when you are no longer afraid of any challenges. So if you are challenged, it's because there's still light to come into your experience, which is to practice standing as yourself, as the truth of yourself within the challenge. So that's how the latent tendencies come to be learned. Even if you notice there is a aversion, any of these types of strong feelings, even within that, the truth of yourself remains. So if you stay with the feeling without wanting it to be any different, you come to meet yourself and at the core of yourself as truth. But you see here, the embodiment of one's true nature means accepting that humanness, all imperfection of what it may be to be a human. Then that's when things change. A change from the inside, an experience out of your love. That's how the truth of oneself comes to stand out and take over. So embodiment of truth is not about getting rid of this humanity, of these imperfections. You want to reach a place where you are at peace with whatever happens around you. You're no longer afraid of meeting anything as it is. Trust the self. Don't trust whatever is going on the level of your mind. Usually the first reaction when there is a whatever experience is to believe that there is a distance from the object of experience and yourself. And that arises out of your ways of thinking or how you invest in certain feelings as opposed to other feelings. So bringing your heart into your experience is to live the experience as it is, independently from your judgments and opinions. Because whatever experience, all they do is they trigger some things in you, in which you respond in certain manners, which creates your dilemma. It's not the experience itself. For what would be the experience if you weren't there? If you're not there, then what is there? So you are that. You are the experience. And whatever experience that comes your way, they come your way for a very precise reason, to trigger that little place in you that requires some awareness and presence in your heart. For the only thing that you can be sure of is your sense of being, isn't it? That's the only thing that is not being altered by whatever is going on in your life or in your mind. Your sense of being remains.
Would you say that dropping into our beingness would be another way of putting it? Would be the same thing as putting your heart into it or bringing it into your heart? Would you say that's the same?
Yeah. It just depends on how full you are in your experience, in terms of how full as being you are with yourself. The ways of describing it are innumerable. Sometimes, depending on the individual or your background or whatever, certain words seems to work better than others. But essentially, it's like this. It's abiding as you are and at the core of your being, meaning letting go of your mind, not relying so much on what comes on the surface of your being, but sinking down into your being and using everything that stands out of your being as sensations, emotions, thoughts as indicators of where you are in relation to your being. So as opposed to giving your attention within these outside the movements, you bring it in and sink within in your very being. Generally speaking, I use certain terms that stays the same, so to say, but most of the time I use these words interchangeably. And there's a reason for that too, so that people don't get stuck in knowledge, but come to experience what it is we're talking about here and now. For them, there's something in progress as opposed to accumulating more knowledge. So it's not like I am teaching something, I'm teaching a way, or something like this. It's more like what it is that is being thought is a practice in and of itself. So that when you do go about with your life, you practice. You stay alert as to what is going on in your mind, as to see whether you're trying to rely on your knowledge or that you're factually trying to bring your attention into what it is that is going on in truth, so that you stay tuned with a greater perspective, if not staying in tune with reality. For sure, there are certain words that revolve around a way of talking or presenting the subject of the matter. But then, yes, it's kind of secondary. Because words, no matter how elaborate is one's teaching or is a teaching, it remains that language is a mode of indicating at something. It's like presenting a map. If I present you a map so that you may go to India, it'll work, but you still have to move around. So no matter the language, the teaching, they are just tools. If you stick to the tools, then you're not gonna go anywhere with that. And yes, language and thoughts go together. So if you stick to what it is that you know, as much as it can help you in terms of direction, as much as it can trap you. It's the same like saying, how many times in a day do you realize that whatever is going on in your mind are just thoughts, nothing real about them? How many times? Probably 95% of the time you don't know. You don't realize that this is what's taking place. And you're going through the whole experience of feeling and sensing as if whatever is going on in your mind is reality, when it is not. And sure enough, when there is much thoughts in your mind, language is associated with it, as if you were to talk to yourself. How many times you look around and you see people on their own and talking to themselves? So the non-verbal state of mind is essential, even though there may be a language taking place, having its use, yes. In fact, all this talk is simply an excuse to allow a togetherness to take place. Meeting, like a practice, a meditation. When you meet a challenging circumstance, so you're dealing with someone that is having a hard time. What happens when you use that moment as a pointer to yourself, as to see whether you are abiding as yourself, as you are, independently from the mind. You find a peace, isn't it, within. And that's how you can actually relate with the person around you. That's the energy you're giving out also. So giving an occasion for this other person to also sit in themselves. It's not like you can change someone else. Nobody can change anyone else. You must first see if you can be there for yourself. Find peace for yourself first. The rest is not under your control. But you can control yourself by abiding as yourself, independently from the mind. The thing with one's true nature is that it's not apart from everything arising and subsiding, and yet, like this character that we come to identify with and take ourselves to be out of this mind-body apparatus, is there for a purpose. It's not a bad thing. It's a great thing. It's an opportunity to meet oneself as we are. That's its purpose, while allowing who we truly are as this greater consciousness to have a glance of itself through this particular individual that we happen to be.
Are you saying when someone's having problems, tap into our true nature without any identification as a person, or being okay with the character that we've created?
When you say being okay with it, it can mean different things, right? You take the character as it is, and as it is, it reveals itself as the greater self. If you superimpose a thought on it, or a resistance, then you're giving it a greater reality that it may not have. If you see it as it is as it is. But at the same time, because you really see it as it is, what then is revealed is the totality, which is not in conflict with that. It's not in conflict with any illusion that may appear. It's just that you have a greater perspective on the situation, more accurate. So similarly, when you find yourself being delusional in some ways or another, it's not by judging yourself that you'll get away from it. As you witness however it may take place in yourself, you meet it as it is. And as you do so, then your perspective of the whole situation also changes, right? Then you see that yourself, as you truly are, is also standing out in your experience.
What if you've already, yourself as you truly are, what if you already know it's all forever? What if you've already awoken out of the delusion of a character, a person, or a story? Is that useful? when somebody's being an asshole or somebody's reacting or whatever, and you already know you're just all of it. And is that useful to just remember this, be present, look at them in the eye and just remember the ultimate truth?
It's useful, but what is more useful is to be it.
But we can't not be it. That's what we are.
Yeah, but sometimes your mind is playing trick on you, right? Sometimes your mind is telling you something as opposed to standing independently from the mind. Honest to the core with yourself. There may come a time where you're more inclined to do that than otherwise. But in terms of whether you'll come to a place where you'll always be there, that you cannot know, right?
That would be full and permanent enlightenment.
That could be quite of a problem. It's all part of the game. It's all very infantile. It's all designed for you to be present. So ego is, it's not to be seen as something terrible. It's just an infantile phenomenon, precisely designed to look into oneself, to enjoy it too. It's enjoyable to live in this mind body that we have. It's a trip in and of itself, right? It's an interesting, unique event. It's part, the whole fun of it.
But to truly wake up, don't we have to let the ego go? Doesn't it have to die?
What is ego? It's just an absence of presence.
It's an interesting thing.
In and of itself, there's nothing there. And its very purpose is to indirectly bring you to a place of presence.
But ego only exists when we're not present. Directly through lots of suffering.
But see for what it is. It's not like there's someone dropping someone else to settle. Like an old dog that has finished running around after the butterflies. All these experiences, the awakenings, they are in relation to where you were prior, as somehow much identified, which whatever you are not. So as a result, there is this sense of expansion. But in truth, what is really there as reality is your natural state. So there comes a time where your experience on the daily living is simply, purely peaceful. Nothing too far out. It's enticing to think of all the awakenings and experiences. But there comes a time you just sit in reality.
Which reality?
Whatever is as it is. You can't describe it. So it's as much yourself as it isn't. It's equal. And that way you can meet consistency in your experience.
I prefer it the other way. I'm okay with this, but being in the no self, all that is, total peace, total bliss, total liberation from all thoughts, all worry, all the problems of being a person, I actually prefer that.
It's as long as you take yourself as this body-mind that the problem arises.
No, I know I'm not the body-mind, and yet the mind is still active, it still exists, and it's still doing its thing, but I don't take it so seriously. I know it's not real.
So then why is there a like and dislike?
Only because I'm not in a blissful, total, peaceful state now, I'm just in a normal state.
If there's no resistance to it, then
Not a resistance, but a secret longing for the ultimate.
what if the ultimate is not apart from it?
Like your level of bliss on a scale of 1 to 10, you know? We've all been at, at least I've been at 10, like just beyond. And now it's like a 6.5. It's like just normal. If I think about certain experiences, I can put myself back there. I can stare at that wall, and if I really breathe and really let the mind go, I can maybe get to an 8, 7.58, you know?
Yeah, but be careful with this because you're referring to some experiences. The ultimate state does not make a differentiation between a so-called individual and something universal.
You say the ultimate state isn't something different than the individual?
Yeah. The ultimate state is all-inclusive. Because it's all-inclusive, it is also the beyond.
You're saying it also includes just sitting here normal?
Yep.
Yeah, having a chat.
Totally. The ultimate is zero in your experience. So it's not like there's a better place or not.
As well.